Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the SOSS. This is their part number 418 IT is what it is. This is a template. A 418 IT is the part number for this template. That's what it looks like. And here is what the template actually is. The only thing you're not seeing here are the two nails that are included for the template, and of course the installation instructions. And these are linked to down below this video, and we're going to go over that. But this is in essence what the template is, and the template is handy because it will really eliminate the guesswork out of what you're prepping in terms of the size and where you're to prep it. I think a lot of people are, I know that a lot of people won't naturally gravitate towards a SOSS hinge for their project because it's, I can't machine for that, I can't route for that. I don't, know how to do all of that stuff. And quite frankly, I don't either. But meaning I've done it lots of times, perfectly every time. You don't have to be a journeyman fine carpenter to be able to install SOSS is what I'm saying. I'm not that. I sell hardware. But this product is easy to install, and it just takes a commitment to, read the installation instructions and understand. I think it's appropriate to understand the product at its base level to know what you can do and what you can't do with it. And really, there's only one rule when it comes to SOSS, and that is not to exceed the hinge back set. Actually, it's not the hinge back set, but it's actually the opposite end of the door. From the face of the door, the pull side of the door to where you start the prep, that dimension on the edge of the door cannot exceed a particular size for the hinge that you're installing. And as long as you don't exceed that, you will not have a problem with SOSS because the mortise preparation is easy. This template gives you the length to make each of the two preps you need for a SOSS. You need the body, the deep part, then you need the plate part that sits on top of it. But then this forces you to be in proper tolerance of that dimension that you cannot exceed. If you were to exceed that dimension, meaning if your door was here and it swung out this way, swung out towards you, your hinges are over here. If you set that hinge back too far in, the door is not going to open because the outside of that door is going to be hitting your trim or your jamb or your wall, whatever it might be. So not exceeding that is the only thing you have to know. This template won't allow you to exceed that, and that's because of the way that it's these stop pins and where it's prepped. So if you're going to do SOSS, sure, yeah, you can. I mean, you're going to have to route it, mortise it somehow. You could certainly do it with tools other than a router, but that'd be awful to prep for SOSS that way. I mean, you could do it with a spade bit, and you can, chisel all that out, and et cetera, et cetera. I would really not encourage that. I would use a template. Even if you're doing one door, I would buy the template. Just a single template is what I would buy for just one door because it eliminates the possibility that you're going to install it wrong, in my opinion. You have to be out and out incorrect for this not to work. And actually, the only thing that this doesn't prevent you from doing is putting your hinge on the frame at a location and your hinge on the door at the wrong location. It doesn't really account for that. So you'll have to measure that for sure. But everything else, you don't kind of have to measure. So what is this? This appears to be just poplar, a hardwood species of wood. We would call it the poor man's cherry because when you stain poplar, it does kind of look like cherry a little bit. Although the grain structure is wrong, but it will take a stain that will give you that sort of color, I suppose. The dimension of this template, about 16 inch by about 3 inch. I'm sure that's 3/4. It's a little small. I've planed it down. Okay, it's about 5/8 of an inch. This features a couple of screws that you will, in the process of prepping your hinge, you will remove. You'll put back in. You have these two stop pins that are here. And this literally, when you have your door in front of you, being held, not laying flat, but on its side, you'll take that and you'll put that on the door, and then the two nails will go through each of these pre-drilled holes, and you're going to literally nail this to the edge of the door. You literally nail it down. You nail it so it doesn't move, so that it doesn't rock at all. If this rocks on your door edge at all, you're going to need to inspect the edge of that door to make sure that it's, you know, flat, it's been planed. I've gone to prep doors in the past and I've realized my template doesn't sit right, and then I realize, oh, I've not pre-fit the door yet. So that pre-fitting the door is step one. You know, I would always trim the height first. I would then plane the door, because anything that would happen as the saw blade is running through the bottom of the door to bring it down to its pre-fit height, any sort of tear out that I get, I want my planer to come and clean that off. So undercut it in the height first, plane it next, and then this will sit down either on your square edge door or your beveled edge door. I would think a beveled edge would be a pretty good idea on a hinge style, that's for sure. And on the lock style as well. Then all you really have to do is just measure from the top of the door to the center of your prep. The only thing this doesn't have, which I really wish it would be some sort of a groove or an indicator or an inset locator here, so that when you're looking at this on the door, you're going to measure your dimension to a certain size. Let's say you're putting the first hinge at, you know, 7-inch top of the door to the center of it, or, you know, something in that range. I want to be able to flush my template off to that dimension, so I know that where I'm in the center of the hinge template to where I've marked my center line on. That's the only thing I wish that they had. And when if I were going to do this, I would permanently mark that somehow. Not sure how I would ultimately end up doing it. I'd have to think about that, but I would permanently mark this template so that it gave me that dimension, because I want to be able to measure my door in 3 or 4 locations. I want to take my template, put it there, mark it, nail it down, route it, do both my preparations, remove the nails, move it on down, line it up to the center line is how I would do it. So this will also include the installation instructions. As I said earlier, they are linked to down below. The installation instructions talk about the entire template kit that you can purchase, of which I know that I have a video elsewhere on the entire kit. This template won't work with that kit because it's not been modified to work with the kit. This is, when you purchase this is just a standalone unit itself. That kit requires an extra groove that's going to happen over on this edge, so that the U-shaped, I think they're steel, I don't remember if they're steel or aluminum, you can attach this to the template so that you build all of your units and then move the template from the frame to the door, and all your hinge locations are automatically correct. And that's done via this little flip over tab that's here. And this little flip over tab is designed, it's a bit tight, that screw, so I'd have to loosen that a little bit. You turn that down, and then you can literally just hook it on the top of your door, is how they do that. When you're doing it on the frame, you leave this in place, because that margin, that butted margin there, will give you the margin from the underside of the header to the top of the door. And then again, when you're putting it on the top of the door, you'll flip that down, it will then come to rest on the edge of the door, because it's going to hit the top of the door, and then you'll already be in proper alignment for that first location, if you're doing the frame as well. So let's switch to the screen view, and let's take a closer look at all of the supporting documentation, and let's specifically take a closer look at that dimension that we cannot exceed, so you just understand there's just that one rule about SOSS, and after that, you know, use the hinge. It's an incredibly capable hinge, incredibly elegant because it's concealed, capable of handling substantial weight on a door. So let's do that now. Alright, so here is the 418 IT, and as you guessed, it's for the 418 hinge itself. Okay, stock image from the factory there. The SOSS Invisible hinges can now be installed easier and faster than ever. Each router guide template is individually handcrafted for exactness. The template is held on the door and jamb with nails. Guide pins locate the deep mortise. The edges of the template assure a perfect outline when used with the SOSS RGB100 template guide and lock nut, or the Porter Cable template guide 42024 and the 42237 lock nut. We'll talk about that stuff in a moment, but just in summary, when you are going to use a router to install these hinges, your router also has to be set up. You've got to have the right diameter bit, and you have to have the right diameter guide. and that's the round thing that you attach to your base that the drill bit, pardon me, that the router bit goes down and through, so that you achieve the proper net size. And I'll talk more about that again in a moment. So the 418 hinge. What I just did, I want to go over to the manufacturer's page and open up the catalog, and I want to look at 418 hinge and see what's particular about it. Okay, so apparently the 418 is a fire-rated hinge. I didn't know that. I didn't have that memorized. I didn't know what the difference was between the 218 and the 418. So clearly the fact that it's fire-rated. Okay, so I'm going to be using this on a fire-rated wood door, a hollow metal frame, I imagine, that's been prepped, most likely. So your 418 is down here. It's for 1 3/4 minimum thickness. It is actually... yeah, so it's rated up to 3 hour, so right there. And they refer to it right here. Do not exceed E dimension. That's the one rule of SOSS that cannot be violated. Well, no rules can be violated when it comes to hinge prepping, but when you understand the E dimension, you'll know all that I'm talking about. So the 418 is literally a fire-rated version of their regular hinges, and you can read about all of that here. If you have a fire door and you're doing SOSS, you'll need to look at this page, the fire-rated page. Okay, so now let's do this. Let's take a look at the SOSS .418 hinge itself. And the reason we want to do that is because I want to look at that template. What is it that we are supposed to be prepping? These first hinges that come up here are the spring version of them. Okay. So we've got some 418 hinges here, just different finishes. We'll click on the black hinge. And the reason I'm clicking on that because I want to get to the template. So the template shows us what this hinge needs to look like when it's prepped in the door and frame. This template obviously allows you to create the required preparation. Remember I said earlier, dimension E. Do not exceed dimension E. Dimension E happens to be right here. 1/4 inch. If exceeded, door may not open. I don't know. I don't think they call it dimension E on the template. But what I've been driving at is on the pull side of the door, you cannot go bigger than that dimension. And it changes for all of the hinges, or it might be the same for some, but you have to check obviously. And if you were to put that hinge over here rather than over here, the door may not open, because now you can see on the template, if you have an excess amount of material here, it's going to encroach into this space. The dimension between here is going to get way smaller, and the door is not going to open most likely. So the stop pins that are on the template, they don't allow you to exceed 1/4 inch. That's it. Now you're done. You don't have to know anything else about SOSS, except maybe let's understand what the prep's going to look like when we do it in the door. I said that you have a body prep, and then you have the plate prep. So think of it as two geometric shapes. Here, so the edge of the door, all of this is the body. I would do that first, even though SOSS tells you to do the plate first, the plate first. This is the plate, this long rectangle here. SOSS has you do that plate first, then remove the 2 screws. Pardon me. You remove the 2 screws, you do the full plate prep, and then you put the screws back in, and then you prep only this body. And the only thing you're doing is just monitoring the depth at which you're doing it. And of course, that's on the template. They don't actually tell you what to, with the template, the 418 IT, they don't tell you how deep to make everything, but they do, of course, in the 418 template. And they're giving it to us right here. 1 1/16 deep for the body. The length of that's going to be the body itself is 2 7/16. The plate prep is over here. It's 4 39/64, and its width is 1 1/8 inches. So now you know all the dimensions. You've got the length, width, and thickness. Oh, I didn't give you the thickness of the plate, which is 13/32, obviously. So now you've got all 3 dimensions for each of the 3 preps. Length, width, and depth. And then you know your dimension E. So let's go back to the 418 and see and check out somewhere where it calls it dimension E. It calls it dimension E right here. That's dimension E. It's defined right here as dimension E. And then somewhere on the rest of these links, it's going to be called out. Let's look at the clearance detail, because that is going to illustrate very well what happens, or why dimension E is so important. So as you study this, you're going to see exactly why dimension E limits us. So if you go bigger than that, it's not going to work. Okay? And that dimension E is going to include anything that you've applied to it as well. Really great job that SOSS. If you call SOSS and say, I need some help understanding how my door is going to swing, they're going to send you this document. Okay. Now, there is the link to the installation instructions that is here. So let's, yeah. So this is the link for the document that comes in the package. This is for the entire kit. Okay. I'm not going to go over all of this because I've done a complete review elsewhere. The only thing that I've noticed is these channels, as I had said earlier, it's somewhat referred to here. This is flush. The template needs to be routed to fit inside of here. The individual templates are not. If you happen to be wanting to purchase a template for your kit, let's say you pulled that router out of the door before the router bit was done spinning and you nicked it pretty good, let us know so that we can order the proper template for your kit, because it needs to be prepped for it. But page 1 of the document gives us the overview. Okay? Once you have the template down in place, you'll nail it down. These are your guide pins. You know, I would leave the guide pins in and I would do the deep work first. Then I would remove the guide pins and do just the shallow plate prep, is what I would do. I want to do my finished work last, just like I did when I was prepping the size of my door. I want to eliminate the possibility. I want to be able to have the opportunity to fix something that I don't like by doing that finished work at the very end. Okay? That's what your hinge will look like. But they're showing here that you need a starter hole, and you're going to need to drill a hole into the door itself to get your router bit down into. And there you go. So they're saying use only Porter cable template bushing 42024 and 42237 lock nut to ensure the following guide bushing dimensions. To avoid installation problems, practice first. Test it first. Don't grab that $500 90-minute walnut door and make it your first attempt at this. Get a 2x4 and nail your template down and test it out. 2x4 should be no problem. Or put it into your bench vise and clamp it down and get a big get a piece of wood clamped in there, or however, or get a call door, whatever you're going to do. The word is call, C-U-L-L, just a defect door. You're going to need an extra long router bit. Table B in these installation instructions tells you how long you're going to need a router bit for doing this. You're going to want a 4.5 inch length. They also give a recommended Amana bit number, which we have on the site as well. Okay. 1/2 inch diameter. And you're going to need a plunge router, obviously, and when you route this, you're not going to dare attempt to do all that at once. You're going to do it like a 1/4 inch at a time. Increase the depth of what your bit is prepping at, and continue to do that as you cycle down through to get to the proper depth. And you can set the depth on your router as well, so that you know you're not exceeding that. Okay. So, template guide and bushing lock nut. I'm going to show you that in a moment. Your template, your ruler, your drill, or a brace, if you even know what a brace is. Not to insult you, but you'd have to probably be 70 to know what a brace is. But a great tool for doing this. Doesn't take any electricity. Selection of spade bits or wood bits, sure, you got to have your tools with you. And like I said, mark your location. You're going to do it the way the installation instructions call, but if it was me, I would drill this hole. I would then, with the guide pins in, I would knock my body prep. I would remove the guide pins, and then I would do my plate prep. Okay, and I would continue to do that down the door and then the frame if necessary. Now, the only thing about the frame is they're clearly, because you're using one template for the door and the frame, it becomes obvious that you're going to have a flush door condition, meaning you're not going to have, let's save some of this drawing. Your door is going to be flush because those stop pins, whether you put the template on the door or you put it on the frame, the stop pins are giving you the same back set, so to speak. So your door is going to be flush. So be mindful of that. If you need if you want the door inset, you're going to have to account for that when you apply it to the edge of the door by clearly shimming it a little bit. Okay. If you want the door inset, say 3/32 of an inch or whatever you might want, but this is going to create a flush door, a zero inset is what I'm driving at. So the rest of the instructions I will I'll leave you to go over. Now the only thing left to decode is what is this guide bushing and lock nut they're talking about. Well, back to the catalog, which again is manufacturer's page, product catalog. And I remember one of those part numbers were 42237, so I'll just search for that. And I know I'll get to the section of the catalog where I'll find it. So what they're saying is, if you're going to prep your hinge, the 418 hinge, guess what? You need a 418 IT template. Great, we're there. Okay. The second page of this tells you what router bit you need for the 418 IT. You need a 51310. That's the router bit. 51310. If we come to our site, you're going to find that router bit. Okay, right there. Then, this guide. Well, you have to have the right guide because this diameter cannot be different than what's necessary. And the router guide, RGB100. There's your router guide. Okay, that will give you the lock nut and the guide that will go through your base. That's for a Porter cable. I always use the Porter cable 100, the Heritage, the old style router. You know, you just need I think that was a 7/8 horsepower router. And I don't believe they make any that are that small anymore, but you don't need much of a router for doing this in the sense that you're not trying to move a lot of wood all at once. Okay, so these tables will show you the bits that you need, give you the part numbers. I've shown you where to find them, and then you're done. You're off to the races. That's it. This fellow's doing it right there. He's got his door clamped down. He's got a moving blanket protecting part of it. It's probably, I would say this is probably a French door where he's got glass, and I've prepped those countless times. You're going to wipe a lot of dust off your glass, so yeah, covering it will help you. Do that. You're going to create a lot of sawdust because of how much material you are removing. When it's something really heavy like this, a lot of sawdust, a lot of wood chips are going to be evacuated. I'll have someone stand there with with safety gear, but also with a shop vac to collect all of it right at the origin. Okay, it's really great stuff. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, what do you need? You need the hinge, you need the router, you're going to need the bit, you're going to need the guide and the nut for the base of your router, you're going to need your tape measure, and at that point, you can't exceed dimension E. We've looked at the template, we understand the prep itself, it's easy stuff. I only wish that SOSS made a far more durable version of these, meaning here I am, I'm a door shop, and customers call me up and they're going to order 10 doors and frames. They want to use SOSS. I want something robust. I would like to have something manufactured out of very durable steel, something of that nature. Give me something that I can count on getting 100 uses out of, and it's not going to be stressed or strained. A wood template like this is really great, but when you look at this, you say to yourself, gosh, I think I can make that myself. And maybe you can, maybe you can't. If you've got a small CNC router, you certainly can. But copying their design here is not difficult. For what these cost, it's not worth your time to make one. But if you're going to be doing lots of them, I think you're going to end up, using lots of templates as well. The real problem with these is you want to leave your router in the template when you turn it off and allow it to completely stop spinning. You lift that out of the template, sooner or later you're going to nick something, and if you nick or gouge the perimeter of this, that will be transferred to every single prep that you do. Now, if you gouge it down here, it's not going to matter because you won't see it, but you don't want to gouge that out here, obviously. So be mindful of that. I'd like a more substantial way of nailing that continually, in and out, in and out. I would nail it down only so far that the template wouldn't rock at all. Porter Cable, speaking of them, they have a great hinge butt template kit. I've owned lots of those and have used them hundreds, if not thousands of times. And it would be nice that there was a SOSS version of that steel hinge butt template kit. The name SOSS is quite synonymous with invisible hinges. They are a tremendous resource because they can handle lots of weight and do so very elegantly in a concealed sort of fashion. You do have to be mindful that you are, if you're using SOSS along with an overhead stop or holder, you have to have a special template for that hardware, and sometimes it even costs more. I did a residential project one time where the client did all SOSS and then overhead concealed stops and holders, and you have to have paperwork come from the factory that says, here's where I want you to install that. After you've told them, give me the paperwork because I'm hanging it on SOSS 218s, let's say. So be mindful of that. If you have any questions on the SOSS 418 IT hinge template or any other SOSS product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.